Welcome back, my friends. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Today I've got another video which is part of my running series on raising your own worms at home, vermicomposting, such an important aspect of gardening at home. And the whole objective of the whole process is obviously to produce a high quality worm casting. Makes an excellent garden fertilizer, helps to boost your plants' overall health, making them more resistant to disease and pest, and giving you an even larger harvest, some of the highest quality food money can't buy. So what's unique about today's video is that I've never done a specific video talking solely about the worm bedding and how you can set up your very own worm bin at home using readily available bedding materials, completely free if need be. So in today's video, I'm assuming that you're already set up with a worm bin. You've either built one or you bought a turnkey system, or perhaps you've just ordered one, you've got one coming. And so we're not going to focus on the actual build of the bin this time. I've made previous videos on that, but instead we're going to just focus on the bedding that goes inside of the bin. Anyway, let's move back into the bedding. I'm going to go over these different materials that I have laid out in front of you, why I chose these specific items, and talk about how you can combine whatever it is you have on hand to create the perfect bedding material for your worms to survive and thrive. So when we're talking about worm bedding, what we're mainly talking about is browns over greens. So we're talking about dry carbon-based materials, things like finished compost, which has already gone through its entire cycle and is now beginning to dry out. Things like fallen leaves. And here we are entering into fall. There's going to be an abundance of leaves available. And when we're talking about leaves, we're not talking about the leaves that have just fallen off the tree. They're still moist and wet, but rather leaves that have already begun to dry. They're crispy. You can break them down, shred them, and add them into the bin. So if you are collecting leaves this fall, I'd suggest that you just make piles of leaves rather than put them in garbage bags, let's say, where that moisture is going to condense and it's going to cause the leaves to begin to rot. If you just have it in a pile, you turn the pile every once in a while, exposing it to air. For the first few weeks, you're just going to get leaves that are drying up, not rotting down. And that's really what you're looking for when you're adding leaves into a bin. You could also add in grass clippings. Again, after mowing the lawn, make a pile, turn it, spread it out, let the blades of grass dry out. It doesn't have to be 100%. You just want most of that moisture out. And you can add that into your worm bin as well. Some other materials I have here, my favorite, which is coconut coir. And I'll often set up my worm bin using solely this product because it accomplishes everything we're looking for in a worm bedding all in one, but there is a cost to this. So perhaps you're not looking to spend any money on your setup, and I can respect that. You can bypass this product, but if you want to, you can use this product and this product alone. It's actually pretty affordable for what you get out of it. Or you can simply use it as one of the ingredients, one of the components to your overall bedding. I've also got right here some biochar, and this is essentially homemade charcoal. And this is easy to make at home. I've gone over that in previous videos. Again, I'll drop a link below to some of the things that I'm referencing in this video so that if you want to get some follow-up information, you can do that. But what makes biochar such a great additive to a worm bin is that this is pure carbon, and that's what we're looking for, is carbon-based materials to add into the bin. And the biochar has these little microscopic porous inlets on each and every piece of wood here that's going to absorb all the nutrients that are being produced in the bin. So as this breaks down and the worms eat this material as well, whatever little chunks may remain when you do harvest your worm castings are going to be loaded with nutrients from the bin, and it's going to provide more of a slow release of these nutrients from the worm castings into your garden. So a great addition. I've also got here some spent coffee grounds. Now these coffee grounds have already been ran through a machine. They've had water sift through them, so they're not acidic like unused grounds. Once it's been ran through the machine, what you have is a pH neutral substance here. It's a really great additive to your bin, adds in some nitrogen, and provides some grit for the worms, which they really like. I've also got some straw here, another wonderful addition to a worm bin. You could use hay as well, and what's great about this material is it's extremely cheap. Most people aren't going to be producing this at home, but if you get a bale of straw or hay, it's just a few dollars and goes a long way. Wood chips are another great material to add into your worm bin. They're easy to come by. You can create them at home. You can get them delivered for free in most situations, but overall a nice material, helps to aid in drainage and creates a nice habitat for the worms. Lastly, I have some paper products here. I've got some cardboard that I just ripped up by hand into pieces. Another readily available source of worm bedding. We've got newspaper here. Again, You're just going to shred this stuff by hand, tear it into strips. And this is, again, another really wonderful addition to your worm bed. You can add lots of paper material, even grocery bags, okay? Just rip this stuff up, shred it up, and add it into your bin. And yes, there'll be other materials that you may find or come across that you can add into your worm bin as well. But these are some very common items that most people have sitting around at home or have easy access to, low to no cost. These are going to get you on your way to a nice, healthy, and abundant worm composting system. All right, so before we start blending all these materials together, let me just say, you may only have a couple of these materials sourced. That's okay. You don't need every item I share with you today. Just do the best with what you got. However, it is my belief that the greater variety of bedding material that you can add together, the higher the quality of compost you're going to get at the end. It's going to have a wide array of materials for the worms to feed on. And by the way, it's not just the kitchen scraps, the plant-based stuff that you're adding into the bin for them to eat. The worms are going to consume the bedding. As much as 50% of their diet consists of the bedding that you use. So just be aware of that. So besides the materials that we're adding in for bedding being brown materials, mostly carbon, what makes it a great bedding material? Well, we're looking for items that, for one, the worms are going to be able to consume. Then we're looking for materials that are going to have good aeration. We don't want an anaerobic situation where the materials are clumping together, it's not draining properly, it begins to stink, creates bad bacteria. We don't want that. So we want good moisture retention, but also good drainage. So aeration, drainage, moisture retention, and materials that will feed the worms. That's what we're looking for. So I've added in my straw here. Now I'm going to add in some compost. We'll put in some dry leaves. All right, so we'll add in these wood chips now. And we got the biochar, the cocoa coir, my favorite, the spent coffee grounds. We'll throw in the cardboard, and you can rip them up in smaller pieces, but even sizes like this are fine. And everyone has some of these boxes laying around, and one box goes a long way in a worm bin. And by the way, don't worry too much about any leftover stickers that are on there. Don't waste too much time trying to remove that. Eventually, any item that's not going to be broken down by the worms is going to surface to the top. You can easily remove it later. And we'll add in our newspaper. Again, just tearing it into strips is good. Easy and quick. And some brown paper grocery bags. And by the way, at the end of creating your bed, you can take some of the larger pieces of cardboard, newspaper, or brown paper bag like this. You can wet that material and lay it on top like so, and that's going to help to retain the moisture in the bin so that it doesn't evaporate too quick. We want a nice moisture content between 70 and 90% moisture. You can use a moisture meter if you want to get it exact, but really all you have to do is observe the bin. When you're adding in fresh scraps from the kitchen, just make sure it's not too dry, and if it's too moist, add some more browns into your bin and make sure you've got proper drainage as well. You follow these steps and you're going to have great success raising worms at home, creating some of the best fertilizer for your garden. All right, so one of the last steps here now is going to be to add moisture into your brown bedding materials, and you want to do that using dechlorinated water, whether you're getting it from a rain barrel, from a fish pond, or a filtered water, or a dechlorinated water that you've treated. Any of those sources will be great for adding in moisture to your bin. If it has chlorine, it's effectively killing off beneficial bacteria and some of the microbes that we're going to be proliferating in this bin, and we don't want to do that. So here I'm going to gather some fish pond water. Just going to add enough water, eyeball it to the point where I think I've got a nice even moisture content, and we'll mix all these ingredients together. I'm just using a garden cultivator tool. And remember, the food scraps that you add into here are going to have moisture as well that dissipate into the bin. And that's where the worms are going to tend to gravitate to once they get set up in here. So that's pretty good. It's moist. All right, so now I'm going to be adding in some kitchen scraps. And I've got this under the counter container that we use to collect all our kitchen scraps. We're just going to dump that in, and I'm just going to kind of mix that in. And then, like I said, we're going to put our worms in here, and then we can put a covering on it like this. Add a little bit more moisture to the cover. And this is going to be absolutely perfect for the worms. So now I'm just going to add in a scoop of worms out of my existing worm bin. My initial investment of 2 pounds of worms several years ago has turned into an endless supply with just a little care. And these are red wiggler worms, the best composting worm for a bin setup. And now that they're in there, we're again just going to put that covering on. And if you want to, you can slap a loose-fitting lid on top of the bin as well. In some cases, you may need to do that to keep some of the predators and pests out. You're going to want to make sure it has proper ventilation, so if it's too tight of a lid, you may want to drill some holes for aeration. And that's all there is to it, my friends. Cheap, easy, effective. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have yourself a great rest of the day. Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.